back to the HPP podcast. I'm Rich Harris, and thank you for joining us again this week. If you hadn't had a chance to listen to our last episode, we focused on the future of the NBA, talked with Lal Murray of The Athletic about the LA Clippers, and also had an in-depth discussion with Noah Levick from NBC Sports about the Sixers. You can listen to that episode or any other episode at hoopsprospects.com. Please check that out. Today, I am joined by Drew Barton and Cam Reel. Believe it or not, Hugh Baxter is hanging out with Drew Holiday, while Connor Youngberg is absent because he's busy working on his new Xavier Webb Simpson fan site. So, gentlemen, how are you doing today?
I'm looking forward to less Xavier Simpson talk today.
Yes.
Yes.
Are you gonna
Xavier like a dead horse in the last one? So
oh my goodness!
now that Connor's not here, we can get into the real stuff.
Right, but are you going to check out his Xavier Simpson website when he's finished?
Oh, of course.
Only if he gets a Xavier Simpson full body back piece tattoo of him throwing the skyhook back to back with Kareem.
That would be pretty cool.
But that's exactly the kind of tattoo he should have. Like that, you want the goofy ones. I'm all about the goofy tattoos.
Have we heard any more about what Hugh is doing with Drew? Everything rhymes. Drew, Hugh. But we know he's in some kind of training session. But have we heard any more?
Not that I've heard. I know everything's kind of hush hush for him. He doesn't. He's got to be careful when and where he says things.
Right.
Which I totally get. There's confidentiality.
Right, I get it. All right. So now that we've cost him his job, hopefully he'll fill us in on the next episode. All right. So today we're going to actually be switching gears a lot and talking more about college hoops. We've been talking about the NBA most of the summer, but we have two special guests, Tennessee guard Santiago Vescovi, and Dayton big man DaRon Holmes. However, before we talk about those guys and talk with those guys and talk about college basketball, let's chat a bit about the NBA. Right now, the news from the league is down to a trickle, but we did have some interesting developments concerning Kevin Durant. Mainly, he now apparently insists that the Nets fire head coach Steve Nash and Sean Marks, and if they're not fired, then he says he won't come back. So who wants to talk about this first?
I can go first on this one, Rich. And I heard this take. I forget who said it, but it was like one of the big talk shows, and I really have to agree in that I feel that effectively Kevin Durant kind of backed Joe Tsai and the Nets into a corner by saying this, and it's kind of forced their hand to trade him, because I think he felt that they were doing their due diligence, and I say that with quotations, like they were reaching out and seeing if they could trade him, but their demands were so crazy. I mean, they wanted the entire Warriors developmental, pipeline for the next 4 years. They wanted Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown from the Celtics. Like had these crazy demands. So I think it was more just to try to be like, oh, hey, look, we're trying, Kevin. And I think Kevin felt that by saying this and basically telling them that, like, I am not on board with any of your leadership. You need to either put more power in my pocket and let me have more control, or I'm gone. I think at this point, Joe Tsai is like, do I hold up as an owner and as, the de facto leader of this entire organization, or do I cave in and give Kevin Durant what he wants? I don't think Steve Nash really is ready to be an NBA head coach, not at least to the caliber of contending. But, I mean, how do you keep him on the same team? I mean, if Durant is openly now dissenting and saying, like, this is not the guy, how in 3-4 months are you going to put them in a locker room and expect them to kind of lead this team? So I think Durant kind of doubled down, and Joe Tsai's got to cut bait. And who the hell knows what happens with Kyrie Irving at this point?
Well, there's an interesting, thing when Nash was first hired, it was thought that Durant was part of that process.
That's what I thought as well.
Durant was on board with it.
He totally
I forget
was.
Huh?
There's no way that KD didn't sign off on them.
Right.
Picking up Steve.
I do think the argument there, though, is that I think Durant, and it goes back to that Kyrie comment of like, well, one day maybe I'll coach and maybe another day Kevin will coach. I think they signed off more from the standpoint of like, Nash isn't going to have any power here. And so KD might have thought that, and going in here going, look, I'm the guy, get rid of him. not realizing maybe Joe Tsai is more committed to Nash than previously thought. Because I think Steve Nash the entire time was a total puppet play. Like, I love Steve Nash, the player, but there's no way he was ready to lead a team with those egos, those personalities, and with those aspirations. He's not ready to be a championship coach 1 year into his tenure.
Yeah. So your take then, Drew, is this, I basically heard, at least from one source, I should say, I didn't hear it personally, that one person's take was that this was something that Durant may or may not really want, but it was something that he knew that the Nets wouldn't agree to.
Exactly.
Is that your take, Drew?
Yeah, I think he's just trying to be I don't think Kevin's personality is super openly combative. He's more passive aggressive is what we've seen. So I think this is his way of, again, just stoking the flames of, I don't want to be here. Don't keep me here. I requested a trade. Well, now I don't like the GM and I don't like the head coach. And so he's not the type of guy who's going to blatantly just walk out, I think, and say, I'm sitting out and there's nothing you can do about it. But he's just going to keep kind of poking the bear until he becomes such an irritant. And the head coach, the GM, the owner, his teammates are just so done with him. They'll just get rid of him for whatever because it's addition by subtraction at that point.
What about the fact that I lost my train of thought. His reputation. I mean, because if you don't look into it deeply, if you just hear that headline, Durant, demands that Nash and Marks be fired, my first thought was, what an asshole. Is he not and I suppose the league is small enough that as long as GMs and the people who make the calls know that this was just kind of a play by him, it's okay. But I'm just saying, on the surface, your average fan is going to think that. And if people don't know his motives, which they probably do, he'll be okay. But any thoughts about that, about his reputation?
I think Kevin Durant stopped caring about his reputation a while ago. He actually, fun fact, tweeted something today in response to a fan who had said it was about his legacy. And the fan had went on this tangent saying, like, well, legacy is something that's defined by those around you, not you. And Durant was like, yeah, like it doesn't matter. Like, as long as I'm content, like, they're going to have their opinions one way or the other. I mean, I think Kevin Durant was kind of doomed from the moment he came to Golden State. Unless he went to the Nets and won a championship, he kind of doomed himself to always be a villain, or at least be viewed that way.
Right. And his legacy right now is George Gervin's, really.
Yeah.
I mean, George Gervin, he never won a title, but point being is Kevin Durant's going to be known as a scorer, and the only time he won is with guys who won with him and without him, and they actually won more frequently without him.
Yeah. That Warriors recent title, as happy as it made me, was damning as all hell for Durant.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Cam?
The sad thing with KD is, like, there was a period of time, like with the Young Thunder team, that he could have been one of the most popular players in the league.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
And he was so likable then. Like, I remember when he got his MVP speech, like, he blew up the internet, like, shouting out his mom, and he was tearing up, and it was like, it was fun to watch. No, we haven't seen a guy like him, but as he's aged, it's just kind of like, it's like he's a different person from then, which I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's changed a lot, but man, like, these guys, it's like some of these guys don't recognize that popularity is what makes them their money. Like, stay with the team, build up your fan base, and you'll be beloved forever in that city. And there's like this whole generation now that doesn't care about that they think legacy is just getting the stat or just getting the ring.
Right.
Steph Curry literally is the closest thing to the second coming of Jesus in the Bay Area. I mean, the man is literally the Pied Piper. And to Cam's point, it's not even just the highest level guys. I mean, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green can do whatever they want. Gary Payton can walk into this city for the next couple of years, have even, and do whatever he wants and nothing will happen. I feel that, Cam hit the nail on the head. Guys don't really care about that anymore. And I understand to a degree, they want to, for a long time, athletes are viewed as, you entertain us and that's it. And they're trying to develop more individuality. But at the same time, like, Kevin Durant had the entire league. I mean, he was ready to ascend to the best player, clearly. And it didn't work out that way for whatever reason. And I guess he's content with that. I mean, I would have thought maybe after the whole Golden State debacle, he wouldn't double down and do this to the Nets. But, I mean, hey, he's got $40 million coming his way. I don't.
That's the weird thing, he signs a contract and a year later he wants out. In fact, the day after he made the trade demand, he got a whole chunk of money from the Nets because it's the way their installment plan is based.
Yeah.
And so I mean, the Nets must really, privately, they must just want to strangle the crap out of him.
I mean, I heard one of them, and I'll end on this for at least my side of it, but I think one of the more interesting things I've read and heard is that a lot of owners are actually across, like, on other teams, are going to try to stand pat and not swing a deal for Durant, or try not, because they feel that if this happens, this will be like this will be the straw that breaks the camel's back in terms of player empowerment. That if a guy can demand a trade basically at the start of a new extension and everyone caves in and gives him exactly what he wants, the owners have ceded all power to the players at that point.
Right.
It makes sense with 1 year on the table. I get it. I don't agree with it all the time in some situations, but it makes sense if a guy comes to you and tells you, like, I'm going to leave, so get something for me. But, 4 years, and not just 4 years of, okay, this guy's going to help. Like, this is a Hall of Fame, whatever we feel like, top player of all time. He is on that list. You give up this, man. Next thing you know, you're going to have, Royce O'Neal walking into offices going, yeah, I just signed a deal, but I want out. What are you going to do about it? And so I think that I'd be very curious to pick the brains of the owners, not just the GMs and coaches, but owners. Go, how do you feel about this? What is would you swing this trade?
I tried to do that a little bit this week, but people were mum with me. No comment. So moving on, we talked about Steph Curry a little bit, and they announced the 50 highest paid players of this year. Steph tops the list. Looking at these top 50, I'll just read off the top 10, and I just want to know if anything stands out to you guys on this list. But number one, I'm not going to read the salaries, but I'll read Curry's, and then you can take it from there. Curry is number one at $48 million. This is just for this season. Westbrook 2.
Oh, dear God.
LeBron 3, Durant 4, Beal 5. Yeah, he's the fourth highest payer in the league, and he's unhappy. Beal 5, Giannis 6, Kawhi tied for 6, and Paul George and Damian Lillard. They're all making the same amount of money. Huh. Interesting. And number 10 is Clay. So anyone have comments about this list we have, going down here? There's a couple of names that surprised me. I'm like, whoa. Actually there's more than a couple. Starting with, we knew that Westbrook was making that much, but I'm just saying that kind of sticks out in a sore thumb. And I'm not so much I'm not one to beat up on Russell Westbrook. I don't think you've ever heard me do that. And I think in LA, he's somewhat of a scapegoat, but still, given his track record, given, how his teams do in the playoffs, I think it's pretty easy to say that he shouldn't be the second highest paid player in the league. Anybody want to pick up after that?
Go ahead, Cam.
The only thing that strikes me is how much money these guys are making.
Yes.
My God, you got to think, this is just their contract.
For 1 year. For 1 year.
Shoe endorsements and commercial endorsements. It's crazy. Insane. But the one that kind of sticks out to me off the top 10 at least is Clay.
That's where I was going to go with it.
He's making a bank of money. And at this point, frankly, for most of his career, he's a 3-and-D player. He's just kind of the apex of that type of player. But, you got to look at his career going forward. He's a spot-up shooter. That's what he is. And yeah, he's going to give you some big defensive plays every once in a while, but he's a rotation guy and he's making top 10 money. It's nuts.
I would say at this point in his career, you're correct. I think he's being rewarded for his whole career, and I think Golden State tends to do that. If you would have asked me, though, 5, 6, 7 years ago, who's like one of the first players I want on my team, it would have been him. Because the first thing I want is shooting and a good point guard. And so at the time, Golden State had arguably, you could make an argument, the best point guard in the league and arguably the best shooting guard in the league. So, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. What do you think, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you were just looking at these numbers based on, last season, Clay is the big, like, how the hell is he up there? Rich, you're right. It's all past performance. And they didn't expect those injuries to pile up so quickly. Like, if Klay Thompson never has those injuries, I think we're looking at this as more of he's probably slightly overpaid, but loyalty and what he does is, 3-and-D is the NBA. That's the NBA design everyone wants in their wing. And, I think guys like Chris Middleton have kind of caught up to him a little bit, but he's still that guy. If he doesn't get hurt, and I'm a Klay lover, man. He's my favorite Warrior. I want him on my team for all the reasons Rich said, plus the fact that this is a guy that if he gets one shot and we don't give him the ball at all, he's not going to complain and he's still going to play as hard as he can defend. So he's just a consummate teammate. I mean, the one on here, I guess the other one is Bradley Beal. I know it's because he just signed and, money's always going to go up and in a couple of years he'll drop down. But like, I'm just thinking of Bradley Beal, like this guy's making the 5th most money in this league. And what does he have to show for it at all? And I think Bradley Beal is closer to his decline than he is his apex at this point. So that's the one that I think that's the contract that I think is going to age poorly. I'm not saying he's going to be a bad player. Not saying he's not going to contend for a few more all-star appearances, stuff like that. But, the Wizards have been treading water and you just gave this guy a big, big salary, more so than the players listed below. And a lot of those guys below, even if they haven't won championships, have carried teams into the playoffs. They've made runs as the alpha, whereas Bradley Beal, hasn't done such. So everyone else in the top 10, to be completely honest, I don't have any issues with. I know we talked about Dame's contract, his upcoming extension, that I have issues with. But
who's definitely is going to be on the downside of his career. There's
exactly.
no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
But everyone else makes sense except for us. But that's a whole different talking point.
Yeah, as you go down the list, you got Tobias Harris at $38 million at number 15. That's not pretty. You have Kyrie at number 19 at $37 million. Have Ben Simmons tied for 20 at $35 million. That's not pretty. KP at 34. He's tied for number 22. Joel Embiid is 26th on this list. He should be top 10. And Jokic is behind him at number 29 at $33 million. Then comes Harden at $33 million. D'Angelo Russell, $31 million, number 33. Michael Porter, oh my God, number 30. He's number 34 at $31 million. Yeah, so there's Kevin Love. Oh, that's a beauty. He's at number 43 at $29 million. So yeah, Al Horford is ahead, is just behind DeMar DeRozan at number 49, making $27 million. And the guys in the G League must love this stuff because their base salary is $35K. $35K. You can't live off $35K.
No, not in the slightest.
Yeah. So there you go. So moving on to our next topic, a little bit of a sad note. Bill Russell recently passed away. One of the greatest players of all time, and one of the greatest, arguably maybe the greatest defender of all time. But the NBA announced this week that they would retire league-wide his number 6 jersey. However, if you're someone like LeBron, you'll be allowed to wear it for the rest of your career. But once LeBron retires, for example, let's say he retires with the Lakers, then number 6 will be retired for the Lakers. So I guess actually when LeBron leaves the Lakers, be it retirement or whatever, number 6 will be retired for the Lakers. And there's another, I don't know, 4 or 5 other guys that wear number 6 who aren't nearly as prominent. Any comments on Mr. Russell's passing?
I mean, it's crazy to me. I'm fortunate enough that I have a Bill Russell signed basketball that was given to me from my dad in my room back home. And it's one of those things we all know about the championships. Obviously you talk about the greatest winner in the history of team sports. That's indisputable. Nobody's going to touch that. But, you start looking at the stuff that he did just as a coach. He won the things he stood for and fought for as a player.
Social justice. Yeah.
I just think that this is a guy that, Jackie Robinson is in his own echelon in terms of, impact culturally off the field. But I think Bill Russell's got to be right up there. And, we don't talk about it enough. And part of that's because sports has become so mainstream and just so, we care so much about stats and rings and, games and marketing and all this stuff. But this is a guy that has been a staple of this league and has paved the way for so many people and has changed so many, I think, mindsets just about human beings. You look at the aspect that he dealt with, obviously, racism when he played. I mean, we know that. That's a fact.
Especially in Boston. I'm not knocking Boston right now, but back in the day, it had a reputation.
Oh, absolutely. But a guy like Bill Russell coming in, playing the game the right way, not compromising his values, not selling them out. I know the money wasn't comparable to today, but never sold out, stuck to his guns, and still won despite all of that at the level he did. I mean, you can't say enough about him. And just a class act. I mean, I always enjoyed when Bill Russell would show up at events and talk to players and interview guys. And, you look at the videos of him when he was talking to the list, when all those great centers and power forwards were up on stage a couple of years back, and he's like, I would have kicked your ass. Just a great personality. And, I didn't watch him play, so I'm not going to pretend to be some, huge fan of him as a player, but just as a person.
Right. Well, he retired long before you were born.
Exactly. So I'm not going to pretend to be like, oh, yeah, Bill Russell was, this and that. These are his numbers. No, but just as a person and clearly what he means to the game, absolutely. Number 6 should be retired, and I wouldn't have been opposed if they said, screw it, everyone takes it off this year. Bill Russell, he deserves it. Hats off to him, man. Yeah. One of the greats.
Exactly. Well said. All right. So another thing that people don't talk about, but for a while after he quit coaching, he was a color commentator and good at that as well. And he had a good sense of humor and a great laugh. So, all right. So moving on, a couple other NBA notes on the website this week. We got 2 reports up. Jared Rhoden, who we've interviewed twice this past year. We did Ali Polhemus did a report on Rhoden, his scouting report. And Rhoden right now is on a he's on an Exhibit 10 with the Trailblazers. He played with the Kings in Summer League, but is now trying to make the Trailblazers roster, which actually might be easier for him. So check out that report on hoopsprospects.com. And we have another written by Daniel Schulman on Knicks rookie Trevor Keels. So check those out. All right. So let's move on to college basketball. And I'm going to start with you, Drew. I know you've been doing some film study this, I guess, past couple of weeks. And I know you did Pete Nance and of now formerly of Northwestern, now of North Carolina, and Gonzaga's Julian Strawther. Do you want to talk about those guys?
Yeah, I mean, just really quick. I know we've talked about Pete Nance a few times on the show back when we were doing stretch bigs and combine performances. I love Pete Nance's game. I know athletically he doesn't compare to his brother, if you want to talk about the raw athleticism, and he's going to be older now. I mean, I think he'll be 23 on draft night. So this is definitely a second-round guy. But when you look at a player who has just a great feel for the game, I mean, Rich and I have talked about this numerous times on the air, off the air. I love this guy's passing. I mean, this is a guy who passes people open. When I went back and did my edit, I watched him play against like Providence, Wisconsin. I mean, teams that were in the tournament that were ranked. And I mean, this is a guy that's throwing skip passes from the 3-point line at 6'11", 6'10". He's at the high post throwing pocket passes to cutters, and he's unselfish with the ball. I mean, he was the best player on Northwestern. We all know, like, anyone who watched him play knows that. This is a guy who's by far. And this is a guy who's getting the ball, passing up open shots. I've got a good one. Let me get you a better one. That's playing the game the right way. That carries to the NBA. And then he is a stretch big. I mean, 45% from three last year on about 3 attempts. So comparable attempts to like Chet Holmgren.
Right.
At that 45% clip. That's not going to carry over. I mean, no one's going to shoot that in the NBA.
Right. And I think
he won't shoot that way.
I think he's 6'11".
Yeah, he's 6'11", I think, at his combine testing. He won't shoot that next year. I mean, that's an unsustainable. But
He might though. But think about all the guys he's going to be surrounded with that can score on that team.
That's fair.
I mean, Brady Manick, I believe, shot like around 40% last year.
He was, I think, 41. He'll definitely shoot north of 40, I believe. I mean, 45 is just such a high marker. That's like prime Steph Curry.
Very, very high, yes.
But I definitely can see 40 to 42. Absolutely. So he has NBA skills. The athleticism and age is what's going to hold him back. But this is a very serviceable player, at least offensively. I didn't do too much of a defensive study on him, but offensively, I can definitely see him landing in the league. He's got NBA pedigree from his dad, from his brother, and teams, using him as a type of offensive focal point, like a second unit. 6'11", he can shoot and pass. You're not passing that up. I mean, he's not Jokic, but you see how dominant Jokic can be with that size and that vision. That stuff carries over regardless of how unathletic you are. It matters. Right. And then I've always been a Julian Strawther fan just because I see the 3-and-D kind of build. It's hard in the Zag system to really stand out in any one aspect of the game because there's so much talent. I mean, Chet Holmgren, Julian Strawther, Corey Kispert, Drew Timme, Andrew Nembhard. I mean, to stand out in there, you've got to basically be a, player of the year candidate. So I think Strawther's the type of guy, though, that hopefully takes that next step this year. Nembhard's gone. Chet's gone. He's their second best returning player, in my opinion, at least in terms of proven college performance behind Drew Timme. So I'd love to see him take that leap. I would really, really like to see a little bit more on-ball creativity. I mean, he averaged 1 assist a game. And again, the Zag system is Andrew Nembhard ran the show. Strawther was catch and shoot, let it rip. So all of his off-ball movement is great. He profiles to be a solid defender and has had some great moments. I mean, you go back and watch that Duke game. He was able to stop on a dime, contest shots. He's got solid length, solid athleticism. He's not too big. Like if you were to think of like Klay Thompson, Chris Middleton, he's probably about 10 pounds lighter than those guys. But the player that I think he could maybe one day peak at, and I'm talking about if everything goes right for this kid, is a Danny Green type. A little bit thinner, a little bit thinner, knockdown shooter.
Probably a little taller too. I think he's 6'7".
Yeah, he's like an inch or two taller than Danny Green. So that's the type of player I could see him and hope that he can totally evolve to. But as it stands, solid shooter off the ball, went through a really bad cold stretch in the tournament, and is probably one of the reasons that they got bumped, if you want to really look at it.
Yeah.
He, I think, was 0 for like 11 on their last 2 games on 3-point attempts. So those are just 2 guys I checked out. I'm doing some more work on Stanford's Harrison Ingram, a player I've seen live play a couple times.
Right.
And another guy out here that's probably a little bit lesser known from San Jose State, Omari Moore.
No, he's on our draft board. He's on
our draft board. And
I mean, it's not the ones published, but I'm saying he has a chance to make our top 200. But he's on our list for this coming season. Yeah.
And as he should be. I love him as a combo guard, and I wish he transferred. I know that takes away from San Jose State, a local team, but he's too good to be on that team. A team that I think won 7 games last year. He led them in every major statistical category, I think.
Yeah.
I think if you look at like the general box score, not the advanced stats, I think he may have led in everything. So those are 2 guys I've been looking at.
He's already proved his point at that level. It was time to move on.
Even if he just went to like a better Mountain West team, I would have appreciated that. like a BYU or a Colorado State or something like that. Yeah. Exactly. Would have liked that. But just some work I've been doing on the side. Okay. I got to tell you one quick funny story about Pete Nance and Brady Manick. When I was at the G League Elite Camp, I interviewed a series of players in a row. So after they would finish their game, they would go to the media room and they sat down and talked to me via Zoom. And Pete was the last guy, but the next to last guy was Brady.
So talked to Brady, and he was fun to talk to. Who, by the way, Brady just signed to play in the Australian NBL. And then Pete came up. And Pete at the time hadn't made his decision whether he was going to stay in the draft or return to college. But he had announced if he did return to college, he was transferring. So we talked about that option. And I said, hey, I just talked to a guy with a really big beard. You ought to think about replacing him. And he laughed, and I don't think he saw Brady. He didn't know exactly who I was talking about. I was talking about Brady. It's North Carolina. I said, you'd be a perfect fit. You guys have similar game. And sure enough, maybe a month later, Pete announces he's going to North Carolina. So I don't know if I had anything to do with it.
I think it's a great move for Pete on the side.
Yeah,
I think he's going to be on a much higher stage.
And I think North Carolina personally has to be the favorite for the national championship because of that move.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Right. So before we bring on Santiago Vescovi, we're going to talk a little bit about Tennessee basketball, that is. Over the past 2 seasons, the Vols have been excellent defensive squad, but they've struggled offensively, and I believe that has led to that team losing. They don't lose much, but when they do, you usually can blame it on their offense, and you can include that in their 2 disappointing exits in the last 2 NCAA tournaments, Oregon State in 2021 and Michigan last year. But heading into this season, according to 247 Sports, the Vols have the 20th ranked recruiting class, and that is led by 5-star freshman forward Julian Phillips and 2 4-star guys in point guard BJ Edwards and DJ Jefferson. The team will also be bolstered by senior transfer Tyreek Key from Indiana State. He's a shooting guard. Meanwhile, they did lose some talent, but I don't think any of this is crucial. They lost, obviously, Kennedy Chandler to the pros, to the NBA, and John Fulkerson also moved on to Europe, and 2 talented reserves, Brandon Huntley Hatfield, he transferred to Louisville, and Justin Powell transferred to Washington State. And I must admit, I'm not surprised to see these guys leave, especially Powell. I thought they really could have used Powell shooting last year. But I think Rick Barnes, he kind of can be stubborn to me. And we'll get comments from Cam on that, who is a Tennessee graduate. But I thought they really could have used more of Powell shooting last year. And I really like Brandon Huntley Hatfield's game. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Bob McAdoo. And I know that's a huge stretch, but I think we're going to see him more featured at Louisville. So we'll find out. So before I get everybody's comments, I'm just going to run down because I think the strength of this team is really the returning core. And if you just look at this list we have of the returning core, I think this team, without any of the newcomers, could compete and to be at the top of the SEC. And that starts with Vescovi. They have Josiah James at small forward. They have Zakai Ziegler, who has Kennedy Chandler-like speed, if not more, and similar game at point guard. And they have Olivier Kamwua at power forward. He's a nice defender, rebounder, shot blocker. They have James Adu at center, who was a top, I think he was like 63 on he's a sophomore, and he was a top recruit last year. I believe a 5-star, if no worse than a 4. They also have Uros Pazovic, who is kind of like Tennessee's version of Drago. This guy just looks for a reason to get in a fight. He's physical, and you don't want to mess with him. He'll slap you upside the head. And then, of course, they have Jemai Meshach, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that either. He didn't play much last year, but he's quite the physical specimen. Also a top 100 recruit. It reminds me a little bit of Yves Pons in his build and in his game, I'd say. So let's start with Cam, since this is his alma mater. How do you think Tennessee's looking this year?
I'm curious to see what this team can pull together. You hit the nail on the head, Rich. Like it's definitely been kind of frustrating watching the Vols for the past couple of years. More so in that like they have the talent and they've had really good records. Like they have a real recipe for success there in that program. But and I mean, this has been the story for Rick Barnes's career as a coach. They've never had the offense to get it over the top. I mean, we're talking about a guy that has coached previously in his career, LaMarcus Aldridge, Avery Bradley, and of course, Kevin Durant, has never won an NCAA title in his career. That being said, they lost some pretty good talent this year. Chandler is going to be missed. He's one of the most poised freshmen I saw last year. Fulkerson is one of those super seniors that like really defined his program. A guy that did everything possible with his talent and his frame. But I think losing Huntley Hatfield to the transfer portal is a real red flag. That's a guy that came in as a 5-star, borderline 4-star recruit and played pretty well. Like he looked
I'm pretty
good.
sure he was a 5-star.
Yeah. I was looking around some recruiting sites and a lot of places they downgraded him since he wasn't, like one and done level.
That's cheating. That's a beat like
Right.
me changing my draft board after they
That's
play
what
their
I'm
rookie
saying.
season or something. Come on now, that's cheating.
Yeah. The one other guy that they lost that I think is going to be maybe more impactful than even Justin Powell, who he had a little bit of a down year last year, but Victor Bailey really shoot the ball, but his percentages were down. But
very athletic.
Yeah. I don't know a whole lot about the incoming guys. I know I've seen some Julian Phillips film, and he looks like super athletic, kind of the classic, rangy, tall wing prospect coming out of high school. Similar to Josiah James, actually. Like, clearly the physical tools are there. He can shoot a little bit, but you're not sure, what level he's at yet. I'm really excited to see him play. And I got to give a shout out to BJ Edwards coming from Catholic High School in Knoxville, hometown kid. For me, the kind of cool thing to see is going to be Tyreek Key, actually.
Yes.
Which he was, for people who don't know as much about me about Tennessee basketball, Tyreek Key was, I think, the 2017 Mr. Basketball in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And man, that guy can play.
Oh, yeah.
He's not, there's nothing pretty about his game at all. He kind of has a push shot. He kind of reminds me of Kyle.
He's also like 37%, I think, for his career from deep. So.
Oh yeah, it works. It's just ugly. But he's kind of that lunch pail point guard, kind of like, he shoots, but his main goal is get to that mid-range, little turnaround shots, bump the smaller guards in traffic. And he had a great career at Indiana State, so it'll be fun to see him kind of come home and get an opportunity to excel. As far as the returning guys, I really want to see Josiah James take over more of an offensive role.
Yeah, I'd like to see him make a shot.
Yeah, I mean, oh God, the Michigan game was so punishing to watch because defensively they did everything they needed to do. They just couldn't hit open threes. Yeah. Like especially Vescovi is excellent at finding corner shooters.
Oh, they took him out of the game. They didn't leave him.
Yeah. I mean, when he's handling and pick and roll, if they help down, he's finding that corner guy every time. He must have done it 5 or 6 times down the stretch in that Michigan game, and the guy in the corner just missed. Which sometimes it was Ziegler, sometimes it was Josiah James. But I mean, they knocked down 1, 2 of those. They win.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's been the story with Rick Barnes teams for a long time. The offense, sometimes it seems like they're rolling out an offense, like a high school offense. It really does sometimes. Like, it's like you stand here, you go to the post, you stand at high post, and you flash when the entry pass goes in. And it's like, they've had some really talented players, but
they usually never have any shooters. or not enough shooters.
Ziegler's a hell of a shooter. Vescovi, I mean, what he shot?
Vescovi's no. I said they don't have enough, and Vescovi is one of the best shooters in the country. But beside him, I don't think there's anybody that they want. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You shoot a 3. I don't think there's anybody else that they can count on.
Yeah,
and in that Michigan loss, trust me, go back and watch. They did not leave him. Okay,
they didn't.
And nobody else could make a shot.
No, that was a problem for sure.
Right.
I think possibly one of those teams that's been a little too committed to playing big. Plopsic is a great example of that. I remember I was still in college when he joined the team. He joined like mid-year, and they threw him into a game against Anthony Edwards in Georgia. And my God, this guy hadn't played. He hadn't played for Tennessee yet, and you could hear the Tennessee fans booing him in Georgia Stadium because he was so uncoordinated, so gangly, and just massive. But I think the one thing that Tennessee has been historically great at and will continue to do is develop their guys internally. Vescovi is a great example. He came in with that quickness. He reminded me a little bit of Barea, like a JJ Barea. I'm just going to kind of bob and weave and pick and roll, hit the open guy, hit my open shots. And last year, he was amazing off the ball, running off screens, a true spot-up shooter because they had to kind of take the ball out of his hands. Olivia Nkamwa, another example. He's been working with, I believe it's the Finnish. I can't remember where he's from.
He's from you're right though. It's around that area.
I think he's Swedish, but he's been with the national team there, and you see him come back every season, and he's added something to his game.
He's from Helsinki, Finland.
Yeah. The guy that I just love on this team, though, I gotta be honest, is Zakai Ziegler. If you haven't gotten a chance to watch him play, he is kind of in that he's in that boat of like Trae Young type point guards. They really he's a shooter. He's a jacker.
But he also plays defense.
He does. I'm talking offensively, Rich. You're totally right. He does play defense. It's because he's from New York. That's why. But he's kind of a smaller guy. He just plays with such a massive chip on his shoulder, and not highly recruited at all.
Fast as hell.
The classic Rick Barnes finds. It's just, this guy, nobody else wanted this guy, but we're going to put some work into him, and I know he's going to be good. So, as far as where's the season going for Tennessee, they're going to be one of the better teams in the SEC. But I think realistically, I don't see a deep run for this team. Mostly because I think those problems are going to remain. But man, they're going to be fun to watch, and there's some awesome talent on this team.
Yeah, they're definitely a top 25 team in my mind.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rich. Did you want to add anything on the Cam's points, Rich?
No, you go ahead. I'll throw in my thoughts at the end.
Yeah, I mean, Cam kind of touched on all the key players and stuff. I mean, for me, I do love that 3-headed guard, wing, monster, whatever you want to call it, of Vescovi, Zakai Ziegler, and Josiah Jordan James. I think they all do something just different enough to be playable together, to give you different things at different times. I love Ziegler's energy. I remember watching him play through the SEC tournament. And there's just moments where you're watching this kid play. I'm like, man, this kid plays hard, and he plays. He's not just I'm trying hard. He's like, I'm trying hard, and I'm actually good at the game of basketball, which is a nice combination because sometimes the guys who try the hardest just aren't that good. I wasn't overly familiar with Josiah Jordan James, and part of that's because offensively he was not anything spectacular last year. I mean, I think he was under 40% for the field. But when you kind of do a deeper dive, he's got the versatility and the size to switch along the perimeter. He averaged, I think, close to, if not 6 boards a game, had a really solid 12% total rebounding percentage. So, I mean, that's your wing that's getting in there, mixing it up, crashing the glass. And you kind of need that jack of all trades type guy who's going to do the dirty work. And then obviously Vescovi, I mean, he can shoot. I mean, 40% on 7 attempts a game. And that tells you everything you know about his offensive arsenal. This guy's going to let it rip, and he does so pretty effectively. I do worry about, there seems to be a reliance on three, and I guess like high school offense, if you want to go there. I mean, 40% of all their field goal attempts came from three last year, which, I mean, that's a pretty big chunk of your offense to be letting it rip. And I mean, obviously Vescovi's, you want him shooting because he's so good at it, but like, Ziegler was 35%, which is solid on 4 attempts a game. James was down at 32% on like almost 6 attempts a game. And so like when the three ball is falling, you're competitive, you're in games. Like I think they had wins against Arizona, LSU. They beat Kentucky for sure once. They might have beat Kentucky twice.
Yeah.
I know they beat
I don't
Auburn.
think they did. I think they split.
Okay. I know they beat Kentucky once for sure, and they beat Auburn. But, like, I look at some of their losses against better teams. Like, they lost to Nova. They shot 18%, and they jacked up, like, 33s. They lost to Arkansas and only scored 48, and they jacked up, like, 25 threes, and they were at, like, 17%. And then I know they did have a blowout loss to Kentucky, Rich. I think you're right. I think they got beat by Kentucky pretty badly at one point in the year. But overall, I mean, I think this is going to be a really solid team. They have talent. I think the new guys, like that incoming blood between Tyreke Key and then the freshmen, are going to kind of determine where this team goes. Like as it stands, this is a tournament team. I totally see them winning a game or two in the tournament. Wouldn't be surprised. But I think Cam's right. Like to get past that kind of barrier, I think these new guys are really going to have to hit and like really come in and help. And I don't know a lot about Tyreke Key, but I looked at just some quick stuff of him. I looked at his stats, watched just a couple of clips. I do think that's the type of player that they need. A guard who's not like overly reliant on the three, kind of does a little bit of everything. He had a really solid true shooting percentage at like 58%, which is like akin to like Dalen Terry out of Arizona. Not that they're the same player, but like that guy, Dalen Terry, did go relatively high in the draft. So I always like rooting for Tennessee. I picked them to make runs over the past couple of years, and they have disappointed. But I mean, I think they're going to be competitive. It just matters if those new guys can come in and be instant impact. And guys like Vescovi can find another element to their game. Like, we know you can shoot, but we're going to need a little bit more from you. Like, you're going to have to ascend to not just, like one of the clear-cut top players in the SEC. I don't know if you can do that, but they'll be competitive. They're returning enough talent. Top 25, I think, is kind of a lock, and they'll definitely make the tournament.
Yeah. My feelings is a little different in that I think that Ziegler has to come through and be another option for that team to knock down threes. Because I don't know, I've never thought of Tennessee taking too many threes. All I know is they miss too many threes, and
that's fair.
So when I look at this roster, as I said before, Vescovi is the only guy that stands out to me that I feel comfortable with shooting a lot of threes. So, and I do know I'm not totally fluent on the three freshmen, but I do have a feel for them. And Phillips is not a 3-point shooter. He's an off-ball guy. He's a cutter. He's a spot-up guy. But where he's actually the best is mid-range and definitely coming off screens. So he really looks good coming off screens, but that's for mid-range shots. And to me, when I think of Tennessee, I'm thinking, that's not what they need. Edwards, too. You know, he likes to attack the basket, and most of his shots are mid-range, and he doesn't look so good from three. DJ Jefferson, probably, to me, has the best mechanics of them all. He's also the least, the lowest rated of the three top recruits, but to me, he has the best looking stroke. So he might emerge as I think Key is going to probably be the sixth man on this team. I don't think they're going to have any problem defensively. And I think they're going to, Kamwa is a sleeper as well. And I think he could turn out to be a really good player. And the same with Jonas, Adu. I think, but somebody's got to come through and be a consistent inside force, especially in the way Barnes plays offense. So they're going to need somebody. And I think Kamwa is going to be that guy, and maybe Adu too. I could see him being, a very good, guy on long rolls. So, like I said, I think this team has top 25 potential. I think they'll be competitive at the top of the SEC. But right now, I'm still concerned about the offense. Alrighty, it's time to bring on our guest, Santiago Vescovi, a senior guard at the University of Tennessee. Last season, Santiago was first-team All-SEC selection, averaging 13.3 points, 4.4 rebounds, 3.2 assists, and 1.7 steals per game. He led the conference in three-pointers made with 102, ranked second with a three-point percentage of 40.3, ranked fifth with a plus minus of 10.5. I believe all those numbers were also top 20 in the nation. And he also ranked at the 94th percentile among all D1 players for points plus assists per possession. Santiago, thank you for joining us today. How you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm good. It's warm here, but are you in Tennessee?
Yeah, back in Knoxville right now.
Okay. All righty. So your home country of Uruguay is much more known for football than it is basketball. I know your journey has been kind of unique. Can you explain how you got into basketball, how it all began, and where your journey has taken you all the way to Tennessee?
Yeah, that's a pretty long story, but I started back home, grew up playing a bunch of different sports, play basketball, grew up playing soccer. That's pretty much the main sport back home. And then, so grew up playing soccer, basketball. I played volleyball as well, played a bunch of sports. So
rugby?
No, actually, rugby was not one of the ones I played. Played ping pong, tennis, swim, did a bunch of different sports. And then growing up, it came down to volleyball and basketball. Those were pretty much the two that I was on a team at that point. And then I was kind of playing soccer on the side, but not really. So ended up liking basketball a lot more. My family is basketball fans. My grandpa played also when he was younger. He used to play basketball national team and everything back home. So he was a pretty big deal. And that kind of got me into the basketball world. And then I just enjoyed it myself. Then started played with the national team and everything.
At what age?
I started playing really young, probably around 6, if I had to guess.
Okay.
And then I was like 12 or 13, or I don't know, probably around that, or 14. And then we played some South American tournaments. I did pretty well in some of them. And from that, I got an invitation to the Basketball Without Borders. It's an NBA camp that was in Bahamas at that point. I think it was like 2016, if I'm not wrong. And then I wanted to come. I had in my mind that I wanted to come to play in the States, basketball. And then we started talking to people. And then we ended up with a person that told me that he could help me try to get to the States. But first, he wanted to watch me live. He was going to be at the camp. So watched me at that camp. I played pretty good. And then they came and they told me they knew I wanted to come to the States, but they were going to open something that is called the NBA Academy. And they were going to open it in Latin America. They were going to open one, and they wanted me to be part of it. So I ended up going over there. Spent 2 years, a year and a half in Mexico, the NBA Latin America Academy. Then I moved to the Global Academy, which was in Australia, for another 6 months. And then I got recruited by Tennessee, ended up coming on the very end of 2019, beginning of 2020, came to the States.
And you started kind of mid-season, because I still remember your debut, because I was like, who the heck is this guy? I somehow missed him.
Yeah. Came in here late December, and at the beginning of January, we were already playing SEC play, and I hopped in and played right away.
Right. Well, you caught people's eye pretty much immediately. So I'm going to pass it over to Drew for the second question.
Right on, Rich. Santiago, thanks for taking the time, man. I know you're probably getting ready to get back on the training and getting ready for, your next season. So I want to thank you for taking the time to, interview with us today. Rich already talked about all the numbers and stats. You had a great junior year, and we know that you declared for the draft, but then you ended up withdrawing your name. What was that process like for you, man? Like, what type of feedback did you receive? How intense was it? I mean, any funny stories that came along with it? I'm sure it was kind of an interesting time in your life.
It was definitely a time in my life that helped me a lot. It helped me with a lot of things. The biggest one, I think, is motivation. Just being there, practicing with NBA teams, being around people that are like NBA prospects, which, I mean, it already happens here, and we play against a bunch of NBA prospects and practice with them all the time. So, but just being there, being in like NBA gyms, practicing and everything, kind of motivated me a little more towards this season. Met a lot of people, really good people around. So I think it was a really valuable experience for me. Helped me a lot. And then worked out with an agency called Priority. They did a great job. Great people with the agency as well. We had some practices that were pretty high level, really intense. We had a pro day as well. So I think the whole time where the NBA draft process went, I think it was really valuable. Helped me a lot. And yeah, I think I'm just grateful that I had that opportunity. Then came to the conclusion that the smartest things to do for me was to withdraw my name and then play another year and see what's up next year and just keep moving forward.
Santiago, since that time, what have you been doing? Have you been working out any particular place, or have you been in Tennessee most of the time? And is there any particular thing you've been focusing on this summer on your game?
Yeah, first of all, went home. Got to spend right after that. I got a break. We barely stopped between the season and that happened. We barely stopped, so I need a little break. Went home, spent time with my family. Also played with the national team back home. That was pretty fun too. And then working out wise, I think that I've been just trying to stay in the gym. A lot of repetition of shots, for example. Try to shoot a little more, moving, not so much spot up. Also being better decision making when I'm on the ball, either coming off screens or whatever it might be. Also, I've been trying to work on my range. I did get some pretty deep shots the last couple of years, but just make it more constant where I feel even more comfortable shooting all the way back there. So those are pretty much some of the things that I've been working at.
Okay.
So you guys are bringing back a lot of talent this season. I mean, obviously you're coming back, but you did lose Kenny Chandler and John Folkers. So definitely a new group. I mean, do you see your role changing now that you're a bit more of a veteran? Do you think you're going to take some more possessions at point guard? Like, how do you see yourself filling in for the team now that you guys have lost some pieces, but have also added some new faces?
We've definitely added a lot of talent. All of the freshmen, to be honest, we got plenty of new guys, either transfers or just freshmen. And I think they all been doing great. We got a great group of people. They all listen. And, I've been trying to take more of a leader role, even more, knowing that we got guys that probably is their first year here. And then some of the older guys like Josiah, Olivier, Urosh, and even guys not so old like Sakai that has been here only for a year, but he has already lived it and experienced it. I think we're trying to cover that role in terms of telling the guys what it's going to come down to once we start playing and everything, what it's going to take for us to win, and just little details that like we got to add every single day so we can get better. And they also know what to expect next year once we start playing. Sorry, next season, this year.
Right. Over the past two seasons, I think it's actually been notable that your losses a lot of times have involved, I'm just going to be blunt about it, the offense has struggled. And I think that in your over the past 2 seasons, your unexpected NCAA exits, the one to Oregon State in 2001, the one to Michigan last year, again, the offense seemed to be what was, holding you guys back. I know that Coach Barnes' style is defensive first, but has that been talked about? We're going to do something a little different so that we don't have these offensive lulls, because it seemed to me like if you had one more offensive piece, you guys could have been in the Final Four. You had enough talent to make the Final Four the past 2 years. So has there been any talk about adding a new wrinkle to the offense?
Not really. We've been trying to just focus, and I feel like 2 years ago it was a little harder because we had really good players, but
everybody defensive.
We had two first rounders with Keon and Jaden Springer. They're really, really good players, but their game was more driving to the rim than shooting.
Right.
And that kind of clogged the paint a little bit. So that was kind of hard. Last year was was more fun. When we get to the SEC tournament, for example, I think it was really fun because we got there with a team that we all can shoot. Kennedy could shoot it, Zakai could shoot it, Josiah could shoot it, I could shoot it. Even Josiah playing the 4 or Olivier. Olivier wasn't there at that time, but we got a bunch of guys, and if I'm forgetting someone, I'm sorry, but we had a bunch of guys that could shoot the ball. That makes it a lot harder for the other team to guard us. They have to spread out a little more, and that creates a lot of more driving lanes for the offense. And I feel like this year we added new guys that they all can shoot it as well. So it's going to be even more fun. Really, really talented guys that can shoot it and also can drive it. So also all of them are really smart with the ball. They know what to do. They play really smart basketball. So I think that's going to help us a lot as well.
Okay. All right. So I guess if I could sum up your answer, you're basically saying that you think that, it's going to be, this team is more offensive oriented, more capable of, their strength is more shooters than defenders. I mean, even Eves, you basically, a lot of times you've had a collection of guys that were just, great athletes, great defenders, but just were not good shooters. So you're saying you think that's going to be a little bit of a change this year?
Well, last year was already a bit of a change, and I think this year we also going to be really defensive. Our mindset is going to be defensively as well. It's going to be real big, but also on offense, I think we're going to be able to still maintain the ability to shoot the ball, and we got really smart players that can also drive it this year as well, and we had it last year. So, yeah.
Right. So last year you had at times, would you consider yourself a combo guard, capable of playing the points? Okay. So at times there's 3 point guards on the court. Do you think that you'll have the ball in your hands more this year with Kennedy gone?
Yeah. On practice, it's been kind of on and off. I'm not really worried much about that because I know the other guys, whatever they do, they're going to make the right decision every time. So I think I'm going to probably have the ball in my hands a little more compared to last year, but still that's going to come down to the game and not once the game starts, I'm not thinking about that. So if it involves me having the ball more, I'll do it. If it involves me being more off the ball, I'll do it too. So.
Okay.
So I know you guys just kind of talked about what changes you're looking to make to the team, most on the offensive side of the ball, but on an individual level, who do you think is going to have a breakout year on your roster? You guys have been, get back to workouts. Guys are coming, what the roster is going to look like for this year, including Julian joining the team as a 5-star. Who's somebody on the roster you think is going to have a breakout year and really kind of maybe improve their NBA stock or just kind of impress the college basketball world?
I think it's still way too early to be talking about that. I think that all the freshmen are really talented. I mean, we're in Tennessee. It's a real big school, has a lot of background, and I think they do a great job with recruiting as well. So I think all the guys that they brought in, they're really talented players. They can, like, to be honest, all of them are really talented. I couldn't tell you right now who's going to have a breakout year, but I feel like all of them are going to contribute a lot to the team, and we all really looking forward to it.
By all accounts, we're going to switch gears and move a little bit away from basketball. By all accounts, your hometown, and I hope I get this right, Montevideo, is one of the best places to live in South America, and it's not a small place either. I think it's like 1.5 million population.
It is very small, but it has a lot of people. It's the smallest. We call them departments, which will be the states here.
Okay.
It's the smallest one, but it has the most people in the whole country.
Okay. So can you tell us a little bit about your city?
Yeah, I think it's a really, really good city. It has a lot of beautiful places. It has coast. We had something called Rambla in Spanish, that it's just like the street that goes right next to the water. And we have like a little sidewalk that people would like ride bikes or just walk right next to the water. And I think that's one of the coolest things that we have. We have a bunch of old buildings that still look really cool. A lot of sightseeing. The people are really warm and they really welcoming. Then there is a lot of people. Sometimes when people ask me, sometimes I say that our city is pretty much like New York, but a lot smaller. And what I mean by that is that we still have like a lot of traffic, a lot of people. It's like a really crowded city. So it's kind of like madness all around. So I grew up with that. So I like it. I kind of got used to it. But now also moving to Knoxville, it's more of a calm city, not so much madness. And I kind of enjoy it here as well.
Okay.
So you've played basketball all over the world, like you told us. You've been all over the world traveling. Outside of your home, what are some of your favorite places that you've been to, whether it was for basketball purposes or even just, new places that you've kind of checked out as you've grown up?
All over the place. I have places in my mind like Italy. We went to Treviso and we went to, what is it called? I've said the name 1,000 times. The little city that has the kind of lakes in between.
Venice?
Yeah, sorry. We went to Venice as well. That was a really cool city. A month ago, we were in Africa with one of the programs here that we have that's called All Leaders. And we went with a bunch of guys from different sports, a lot of leadership involved. And we went to Rwanda. It's one of the African countries. And we went there to do community service and help. But I really love that country. And I just think the culture, it's amazing. Also been to Bahamas. I think it was really, really cool. I still remember that place. Sydney and Melbourne in Australia were really high level too. Really liked them. Mexico City, where I lived in Mexico, was really, really fun as well. A lot of things to do. And there's many more places that are really, really fun, but those would be probably the top ones.
Did you imagine when you were a little boy, like say 10 years old, that you were going to have this kind of journey and be all over the world and playing basketball for a nationally recognized program?
Definitely not. I didn't even think about it, but once like life started going on and I started moving all over the place, I kind of accepted it that like there's a lot of things that people don't see. I can get why people are like, I'm truly blessed to be here at the University of Tennessee, but also I feel like there's stuff that people don't see. And it's the fact that like I've been living away from my family since I'm 16, and that's something people don't see. And it's something really hard, but I think at a pretty early age that it helped me a lot to move away from my family. I was super close to them and everything. I'm still are, but moving away helped me a lot to be more mature at our early age. It really helped me just having like basic problems day to day that you don't have mom and dad to help you with. I think that's one of the biggest things. And you just start seeing life from a different perspective than the whole like people around. So I think that helped me a lot, and I'm still really thankful that I took that route. And I really don't regret doing anything or being anywhere because all that made me who I am right now. And I think it was a really cool journey, and there's still lots more to come. So,
yeah, I agree. And I think the global academies, that whole program, I think we're seeing a lot of very well-rounded individuals come out of those programs. And I think it, like you just said, it really helps them in all sorts of life. I think it prepares you to do probably anything you want. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I want to thank you for joining us today. Do you want to say hello to your country in English or Spanish?
I mean, I can say it in Spanish if you want.
Sure.
Bueno, nada, mandar un saludo a toda la gente de Uruguay, a los que se vayan escuchando en español, que esté relacionado al básquet, decirle que le deseo lo mejor a todo el mundo y que espero que sigan entrenando todos, que sigan sus sueños, que con mucho esfuerzo todo se va a cumplir.
By the way, for you folks who don't speak Spanish, what he just said was, I'm getting off these podcasts with these two morons really soon.
We're not that bad, Rich. We're not that bad.
But one thing I noticed is every once in a while, one of our co-hosts and good friends is Australian, and he's on the show. He's on the show every week. Couldn't be here today, but every once in a while, I thought I heard a little bit of an Australian accent.
Oh, don't even tell me. Don't even. When I first got to the States, everyone would be like, "Oh, you got an Australian accent," and that kind of really got me mad. I don't know why. Like now, if I listen to it, I like it. But at that point, when I had it, I really didn't like it. I don't know why.
Right. Well, I suppose you wanted to be recognized for who, your roots. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Sure.
But it's got to be hard, moving to all those different countries. And all right. So at least I wasn't crazy. I was like, I thought I heard a little Australian there. All righty, Santiago. I really appreciate your time, and we wish you you have a great season, and Tennessee has a great season. And maybe you can come back after the season and let us know how things are going.
Sounds great. Appreciate you guys for everything.
Right on, Santiago. Have a good season, man. I love the Bulls. I always pick you guys in the tournament. You guys,
yes.
I love you guys.
So do I.
You guys are always good, man. Always good. Have a good season, man. Thank you for hopping on.
Appreciate you.
All right. Take care. All right. Let's move on to Dayton. So the Flyers bring back all of their key players from last season. And if you remember, there was a good argument to be made that Dayton should have been included in the NCAA tournament. They were one of the few teams to beat the eventual national champions, the Kansas Jayhawks, last season. So this season's Flyers should, arguably should be better, not only because they have more experience. It was what was a young squad, but they also bring in the Mongolian Mike, as he's known, and that's Mike, and I hope I get this right, Shavajovs, I think that's how it's pronounced. And they also have another fairly touted recruit. He was a top 150 guy in Caleb Washington, who redshirted last year. He's a 6'7", small forward wing type of player. Those returning guys are our guest, DaRon Holmes, who was the freshman of the year in the Atlantic 10. And also an outstanding freshman in Malachi Smith, who's a dynamic point guard. They have Tumani Kamara, who was a transfer from Georgia last year. And Kamara, is a guy who's been on people's radar, scouts' radar for a while. I think he was a 4-star guy coming out, but he's never really reached his potential. He's one of those guys that looks really good at times and really awful at others. And also rounding out the roster, they have Kobe Ellis and RJ Blakeney. Ellis is a shooting guard and a pretty good shot. And Blakeney's kind of a do everything. He's a junior, but he's an older junior at 24 years old. But both of those guys can shoot at a pretty good clip. And of course, Malachi Smith can shoot at a good clip. So, Drew, I'm going to start with you. What do you expect from the Flyers this season?
Dayton's going to be one of my sleeper teams for this coming season, just because, they didn't make the tournament last year. So people are automatically going to probably kind of write them off. They're not a big, outside of people who know college basketball, they're not a super big brand, obviously. I think this team should have made the tournament. They were 15-5 once the calendar flipped to 2022. They had wins over Davidson. They beat Richmond, both tournament teams, had a close loss to Richmond that I watched. And Rich, like you said, before earlier in the season, they had beaten Kansas, Miami, and Virginia Tech. And I think those 3 wins might have come in a row, or they were very close together. So this team should have been in the tournament as it stands, and they didn't lose anybody of prominence. So I think the Flyers, I'm not predicting them to win a national championship, but I think the Flyers are going to get to the tournament, and as they generally do when they get there, win a game or two and definitely impress some people. Kamara is a player that really interests me because I think you kind of were spot on, Rich, with there's moments when you watch him, you're like, yeah, this guy can really go and really play. And there's moments where you're kind of and then he kind of fades. But he's consistently improved his shooting. He got up to 34% this year. It's not amazing, but if he's consistently gotten better. So if he gets another percentage or two better, it gets into the 36, maybe 37 range. We got a legitimate stretch kind of 4. And he was statistically the team's best rebounder. So, we've talked in the past, you and I have had conversation we love to see DaRon be more of a consistent rebounder. Well, Kamara is a pretty consistent rebounder. He was at about 7 a game. So I think he's kind of that X factor. If he continues on his trajectory of consistently getting a little bit better from Georgia and then to Dayton, he's going to be someone who I think surprises some people. And I really like Malachi Smith. I know at 6 foot tall, his shooting percentage as a whole isn't great. It's barely at 40%, but he does shoot 40% from 3 on 1.5 attempts.
He's a great playmaker.
And he's a great he's a great playmaker. So if I don't really care about the field goal percentage as a whole, if he can maybe get his 3-point percentage to hover around that 37-40% range, get his volume up to maybe 3.5 a game, and continue to play make really well. I mean, he had, I think, a 5.5 to 2 turnover assist ratio, which is really good. And he had 2 steals per game as an average. So jack of all trades, point guard, floor general, who isn't going to give you a lot in terms of mid-range getting to the basket, but can knock down shots when the ball comes to him on the perimeter. There's just talent on this team. I am super intrigued by Mongolian Mike here because you mentioned him. And I everything we've heard from both his teammates, from his SID, from you has been he's good. So I got to go find a film on this dude because if he's as good as everyone makes him sound, I think this is going to be a really good team that's going to surprise people. And this will be my pick to win their conference next year. As they stand, I think this is my pick to win it all in their conference and then make a bit of noise in the tournament.
Yeah, I agree. Cam, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm excited to see Mike. I'm looking up a little bit of film as we're recording here. He looks good, man. Nice tall point guard, really sweet shooting stroke, which is kind of what I think this team needs.
Quick release on that shot.
Yeah.
And he's athletic. I mean, he can get up. He can dunk with either hand. So he'll block some shots coming out of nowhere. He's a good defender. Sorry to interrupt, but I could go on and on about this kid. I'm excited to see him play.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be interesting to see what they can get out of Caleb Washington. Dayton's not, and I could be wrong, but they're not a mid-major, but they have that mid-major feel of they can never quite get the massive sized guys. They're not going to get a top 5 recruit ever. But they're trying to find the guys around the edges that have size and have enough skill to boost their overall team play. I think playing around DaRon Holmes, they've got some potential here because they have a core of guys that have played together for a while, and they're skilled enough collectively to really push the pace, and they're an upset threat, I would say.
Yeah, I think they got to be favored to win their conference. I think they might creep into the top 25 at some point, and I believe that they definitely could be a Sweet 16 team for sure. But a little more on Mongolia Mike. I mean, he's 6'7", point forward. He does just about everything well except he's turnover prone. You won't see that in highlights, but he is turnover prone. But yeah, I mean, he can handle. He's a creative passer, and he can whip that ball around and is very, move the defense with deception and craftiness. But he's not just crafty; he's also athletic. And I love his release on his jump shot. There's not a lot of wasted motion. I actually believe he could even be a little faster with that release. I mean, we're talking about a freshman, but man, he gets rid of that ball quick, and there's very little wasted motion. It brings back, a lot of pros do that, but you don't see it a lot in college where the guy catches and he goes right into his shot, and he pretty much does that. I noticed, when I was watching the Tennessee guys, especially BJ. BJ has some work to do on a shot, but he definitely, he loads up. Anyway, I'm digressing. We'll get back to Dayton, but anyway, I really like this team. And DaRon, I mean, imagine if DaRon expands his game. He's second in the nation last year in field goal percentage. So if he can, in which I suspect that he's going to tell us that's what he's working on.
Mongolian Mike is the key.
Oh yeah, and on a
team,
on a team that doesn't have a lot of depth, he is going to be key because he can play 1 through 4. So if they get in foul trouble, you can put Mongolian Mike in a lot of different places.
Well, I mean, like when you look at it, like if your two best scorers, and I mean, DaRon is their best player, are like power forwards, a little bit more traditional, not like kind of go-to half-court scorers. You need a guy who can go and get his own shot, whether that's at the 3, in between in the mid-range, or get to the basket. Because you have a 6-foot point guard, not really going to do that. And 2 like power forwards who are they're not like half-court shot generators. You give them a guy who can be like like we said about, Tennessee, a guy who like the shots clock's winding down, 3, 2, 1, and can let it rip. There you go.
Yep. All right. All righty, it's time to bring on our next guest, Dayton big man DaRon Holmes II, the reigning Atlantic 10 Rookie of the Year. DaRon was also All A-10 selection and earned a spot on the A-10 All Defensive Team. He did all this as a freshman, of course. He averaged 12.8 points, 6.1 rebounds, and 2.3 blocks. He ranked first in the conference and second in the nation with a field goal percentage of 64.9. And he also finished in the top 5 of the conference for block percentage, per, win shares, and plus minus. DaRon, that's a mouthful I just gave you. That's quite a freshman season. Thank you for joining us today. How you doing?
Pretty well. Thank you guys for allowing me to join you guys.
That was great. We were just talking to the SID Doug, and he was telling us that you guys were at the recent the basketball tournament, for older alums, and Obi was in attendance, but he didn't play, correct?
No, he did not play. He was in attendance though.
Okay, so this was an unplanned question because I didn't know about this event, but we'll start off by asking you, how was that event? Was it fun? Was it great to see some of the guys that are in the NBA playing in Europe, or maybe I guess everybody's probably playing one place or the other, right?
Yeah, it was really cool to see that, like all the especially old legends that used to go to Dayton back in the day. Some not too long ago. It was great to see all of them play together, on the TDT team. It was great, honestly.
Okay. Did you get to spend any time with Obi at all, or Jalen Crutcher?
Yeah, I talked to them a good amount of times when they come up here. They'll coach us up when we practice and stuff. They'll give us pointers and stuff, so we talk to them.
Okay, great. And I suppose Obi, you can relate to him more. I guess you guys are about the same size, height-wise. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's rewind a little bit. You're a Phoenix native, and you went to Monteverde Academy in Florida. So that's quite a distance. And then coming out of high school, you were a top 50 recruit. And then when you enrolled in Dayton. You were the school's highest ranked recruit of all time. Can you describe what attracted you to Dayton? And now that you're there, do you feel any pressure from, everybody is saying, every time you're introduced on TV or anywhere, the highest ranked recruit in Dayton history.
Yeah.
So do you feel any pressure from that?
Honestly, what attracted me to Dayton is the atmosphere. When I was, looking at the Final Four schools, Dayton's atmosphere stood out the most. Looking at the style of play, I thought it would be a great fit, and it has been so far. The coaching is excellent. We have a great family around. It's just a great atmosphere to be around in total. Strength and conditioning is great as well. So everything that, the whole office, they really make sure it's like a family here. The players are all really, have great character. So, everybody's cool with each other. It's just been a great experience, so far. And also, what were you saying for the other question? My bad, I forgot.
Well, is the pressure of being the school's highest recruit of all time and hearing that repeated over and over, does that put pressure on you, or do you just, when you're out there, you don't even think about it?
I try not to think about it that much. I just, try to look forward and, work hard on the court. It's great that, I'm in that position, but at the same time, I want to continue to work hard and, just put on for my team.
Right. I'm going to pass you over to Drew for the second question.
Right on, Rich. So Dayton has a rich basketball history. Personally, I became really familiar with Dayton back in 2014, 2015 when they made those tournament runs. They were like my sleeper team year after year. They never really disappointed. But it looks like Coach Grant's kind of taken the Flyers program to a whole new level. What's it like to be coached by him and, kind of help usher in this new era of Flyers basketball?
Like I said, earlier, our coaching staff, I feel like, is extremely underrated compared to a lot of the coaching staffs you hear about. They do a really good job. Character-wise, they're just great role models. We can look up to Coach Grant and all the other coaches like father figures, they just, it's just something about the way they carry themselves, especially Coach Grant. It's second to none. So that's really helped us all out. And it just makes us better, and being coached by him is a blessing. And he knows his X's and O's really well. So, I feel like he taught me a lot more about how to play basketball and making reads and stuff. So he's really good at that.
Absolutely, man. Super underrated staff.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
DaRon, last season the Flyers just missed the cut in March Madness, and you would have likely made it if the selection committee put more emphasis on how you played down the stretch. And I actually, just after the tournament selection process, we had Mike DeCourcy on, who's the bracket analysis for Fox, and I had a huge argument with him why they need to look at the last section of games, but he wouldn't listen to me. So I put him in my book, and then anyway, moving on to the rest of the question, the entire core of your team is basically returning. Plus you have, excuse me if I pronounce this wrong, but you have Mike Sharajabs. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I don't know how to fully pronounce his last name either, but yeah.
Mongolian Mike, I think
Mongolian Mike, yes, we call him Mike.
And then you have Khalib Washington, who was redshirted last year, and you have other guys coming into the mix. So how do you feel that the team is shaping up, especially given that you have basically the core returning?
I feel like our team is shaping up really well, honestly. Everybody's doing a great job of listening and learning. Every day I feel like we're getting better. Everybody's picking up pretty well. And since we all mostly have a year of experience, it's been helpful. We're clicking a lot better than we were last year. The new guys are picking up really fast. Tyrone is doing a great job showing his athleticism and his versatility on both ends of the floor. And then Mike is, an offensive threat. He's killing in practice. He's making great passes. They both look really good. The whole team looks great right now. So we're in a great position, I feel like.
Yeah. I would think that the coach has got to be saying the sky's kind of the limit this year.
Yeah, I feel like, if we just take care of what we need to take care of, we'll do really well.
Right. Okay, going to pass you back to Drew.
So I know Rich mentioned it when we kind of did the introduction. You finished second in the nation in field goal percentage, and as a freshman, man, that's crazy. And the only person who I think had a higher percentage was Akron's Enrique Freeman, who was at 66.5%. But I think he only took 7 jump shots. So with that all being said, are you going to be looking to expand your offensive role more? I mean, you're going to be a sophomore now, coming off a really strong season. You're going to be looking to maybe take a few more perimeter shots, expand your game. What's coach's plan on how to use you offensively?
Coach was talking to me about that. They were saying, make sure, I'm capable. That's part of growing and developing as a player. You need to be able to, expand your range, especially in the game today. So he was talking to me about that and just making sure I'm confident. He thinks that's the biggest thing. Honestly, I feel like I'm going to do a lot better this year with that. Just having confidence in that shot, shooting it, but I'm going to be capable. I'm not looking to shoot it every time, but at the same time, I'm looking, for in the offense, if it's there, it's going to be there. So I'm definitely working on that. So I'm excited for it to come.
Right on, man.
Following up on that, this is kind of a related question is, since last season ended, what specific things have you been focusing on in training? Dribbling, defense, shooting, things of that nature. Is there one particular or two particular things you've really been focusing on saying, I really want to be better at this season?
Mm-hmm. I would say just continuing to have a competitive motor, being able to gain weight. And I think that was the biggest thing for me last season being a freshman. So I'm continuing to do that. And on the same time, I want to, continue to expand my game a little bit, on offense, like we were just talking about with the shooting. So I think that's a big thing. And then also leadership, being able to be a leader, and talk to the team and be accountable and listen to what, my teammates have to say and coaches. Just growing as a person on and off the court, I feel like is my biggest thing.
Okay.
So kind of going back to the team as a whole, we've mentioned March Madness a lot. The first part of the question is, what do you guys feel like as a team are those things you really have to take care of to make sure you guys can get back to the tournament? I know last year there were some injuries and it was out of your hands. What do you guys think this year on the court you have to focus on to make sure you get to the tournament? And then for you personally, what would playing in March Madness mean to you? I'm sure you grew up and that's always the thing everyone talks about in college hoops, man. So from a personal standpoint, what does the tournament mean to you and a chance to play in it this year?
I think, the thing as a team that we just need to fix up is just continuing to keep our head down and stay focused, be mature. And going into March Madness, like you were talking about, that's something I'm really looking forward to. I'm going to take things one game at a time, but when that time does come, I'm going to be really excited, because nobody on our team has had that experience besides coach, so we're just really all excited to, put our heads down and work and earn that.
I've been doing this for a while, and I mean this with all sincerity. I'm not patting, I'm not trying to, get brownie points.
Rich is the old man of the team.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I brought up Jin Paxson before the show, wow. So, but I haven't seen a mad crazy fan base like Dayton's. We ask for suggestions for questions last night. And just, not that many hours ago, and we got a bunch. So the one thing everyone seemed to ask is your younger brother, Cameron, coming to Dayton?
I would definitely love that. I want to get him up here. He still hasn't been to a game yet. He's with AAU right now and he's been really busy, but I definitely want to get him up to the Dayton game because regardless of the game, it's going to be packed. And he loves Dayton. He doesn't have an offer yet, but he always wears the shirt. He always wears my shirts and stuff when he is in his tournaments and stuff. You can see it, and so he loves it. He loves it, and I would love for him to come up here and get the experience. Because I love him. That's my brother, so I think he would really love it. I want him to come up here, but
right. And it seems like the fans like the fans do too.
The fans want him, man. The fans want him.
I want him up here for sure. I think he would love it.
All right.
Time will tell.
Another question the couple people ask, at least a couple, was there one guy that you thought on the team beside yourself that you thought would make a real significant jump this season to be an integral part of the team?
That's a hard question. I think a lot of players are going to do that. I think a lot of players are going to stand out this year. Mike is probably, I feel like, will make a huge jump, because he's a freshman. So at first things might not look the best because he's going to be a freshman, but already from practice, from what I've seen, he's been doing amazing. So I think that a lot of fans are going to like him, and For the rest of the team, I feel like everybody's just going to go up as well. I don't really think there's one particular person that I can point out that's going to, but including me, I just think everybody's growing at the same rate. So I think everything's going to be pretty cool.
Right. Just a follow up on that, I've watched Mike some, not a ton, because I'm still working off last year's draft class. We're still wrapping up last year's draft. But anyway, I have taken a look at Mike, and would you call him a point forward?
Yeah, well, we say like a Swiss Army knife. So he could play like any position, really. He just fits in the system real well. He's unselfish, so like regardless of where he's out on the floor, he's just going to make good plays. Like he makes good plays. So that helps your offensive efficiency go up, and he can shoot pretty well. So he's looking pretty good.
Right. Yeah. And for the fans who don't know, I think he's like the 82nd recruit in the country. But if he's the 82nd, I think he's underrated. He looks very good. All right. I'm going to pass you over to Drew for the last question.
So I know we've been talking a lot of basketball, man, and we're all itching for the season to start. I mean, there's no basketball, man. I'm like depressed all the time. I got no college hoops, no NBA. It sucks. But stepping away from the game, how would you describe yourself to like fans off the court? What do you like to do in your spare time? I know when season's here, man, it's probably all basketball all the time. But when you have a chance to unwind, what do you like to do?
Off the court, I just like to hang out with most of my teammates. We all just hang out and chill, watch TV a lot. We'll go out, but also just I love working out, so it's hard. Off the court, I have a lot of things. I like video games, card games, anything really. I just like having fun. Also helping out the community. So like going out and doing things for other people makes me happy.
Nice,
yeah,
very nice.
Definitely. What's the go-to video game, man? What do you guys all get together and play when you guys have night off?
Right now, it's Multiverse. It's a new game that just came out.
Multiverse is fire.
Multiverse.
Is that based on the movie?
It's like it's from Warner Brothers. So it's basically a game where they took all the Warner Brothers like characters, so like all these people from different franchises, and you just basically fight each other with like Superman versus like Game of Thrones characters. It's crazy, but it's fun.
It's really cool. It's like Super Smash Bros, but like on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox series. Yeah. So it's definitely fun. We all love to play it. So
yeah, it's a good time.
Great. Well, DaRon, it was a pleasure. We'd never met before, but I really appreciate you coming on, and we are secret Flyer fans, and we're rooting for you. Half secret. Rooting for you and the team to have a great season. And please come back and visit us again, maybe after the season. We'd love to have you back.
Definitely will do. I appreciate you guys a lot, honestly.
All right.
Yeah, no, you guys are going to be I can't wait for you guys to make the tournament. I can pick you guys and ride with you. I always do. Dayton doesn't disappoint.
It a lot. Honestly, it means a lot.
Right on, man. We appreciate it.
So now it's time for a mailbag. And of course, we're in the dog days of summer. No, not many people are thinking about basketball, but we do have one good listener question. It's a fun one. It's not the only listener question. Like, we get things like, why is a zipper in men's pants called a fly? Smart ass to send us stuff like that. But we're not gonna answer those on this show. For one, I don't know the answer. But but anyway, Bennett from Georgia asks, All-Star Weekend has gotten so played out over the last couple of years. The skill competition is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. What is stopping from the NBA from doing something really cool, like a one-on-one competition with the best players in the league? How fun would it be to see Jimmy Butler versus Anthony Edwards going at each other? Or how about Ben Simmons versus Joel Embiid? I'd love to see that one. But guys, who wants to start on this one?
Bennett, you ever make your way out to California? I ever end up in Georgia, I'll buy you a beer because you're a genius. I was talking about this on our last episode. This is something the NBA needs. I think everybody, whether they're from the era of the 80s, 90s to player, even people now argue maybe that the competitiveness in the league is dying out, at least not to the level it was a couple decades ago. I think this kind of fixes that. Now, you need to have an incentive for these guys because I don't know if all of these guys are fueled enough to just be like, I want to be better than you. So you're going to probably need some money, something in there. But this would be absolutely awesome. Now, you'd always have to break it down, bigs, wings, guards, or however you wanted to break it down. But, like, can you imagine? We hear the stories of what Jimmy Butler did to, like, the Timberwolves a couple of years ago in practice. Now, imagine him getting to do that on a national stage in front of everybody. Amazing. Sign me up. Can you, like, Kyrie Irving probably wouldn't play because he'd be off in the corner doing God knows what.
He did with Shaden Sharp. He'd be
him and Shaden Sharp would be. They'd be discussing the how flat the Earth is and whatnot, and if they're ever going to find the edge. But like, I think this would be so awesome. It would be great for the league from the standpoint of it has roots in like street ball basketball, where there's a lot of basketball history to be had there. It has some roots into that. Like, we've all played a game to 21. Hey, check up. We've all done that. So imagine the best players in the world doing that. I would absolutely love this. I would pay to watch Steph Curry and Damian Lillard actually try to take each other's heads off. 1st to 11. Incredible idea. Sign me up. Screw the skills competition. If a 6'10" big is going to out skill a little guard at this point, it doesn't even matter anymore. Throw it away. Let them play. Sign me up. Embiid versus Jokic 2023. I'm on board.
I'd actually like to see it with no ref, where basically you call
your own fouls.
Call your own fouls. That would really juice it up.
Ben Simmons would call a foul every time. Foul. Hey, he looked at me funny. Foul.
There's nobody to yell at either, just each other.
Yes, exactly right. So, what are your thoughts, Cam?
Oh my God, I would love it. I just think like it's exactly the kind of thing that I want to see at All-Star break. We see these guys play in regular games all year. If they're gonna come out and play in the All-Star game and not really care, we just know that. But when you make it personal, you make it one-on-one, they're gonna care. Like that can even come down. That straight up is like some contract obligations. Like if I'm Ben Simmons' agent and he goes out there and Jimmy Butler just embarrasses him, I'm feeling bad about Ben's prospects for another contract coming forward. Like, the only thing that makes me sad is I wish that And1 was still a company so that they could sponsor it. It's sad that they're not around anymore. And it's like the perfect event for And1 to sponsor it. But I think too, like, it would be awesome because, one-on-one is so different from regular in-game ball. Like, when you're playing one-on-one, it's almost more about the show and like the style than it is winning or scoring on the guy. Like, Kyrie would be incredible to watch in this. And I think we kind of get a taste of this stuff over the NBA summers where like all these guys are going and playing in the Drew League and playing in Pro-Am competitions in their city. And you get to see just how damn good they are against regular guys.
Right. Are you calling Hugh Baxter a regular guy? Because he just participated in one of those.
I don't think Hugh was competing with any of those guys.
No, he was. Oh? He was at a Pro-Am, I believe, in LA. We'll have to ask him. If he ever comes back on the show, we have a lot of questions for him. But yeah, he definitely played against NBA guys.
Yeah. No, but I just, man, a one-on-one comp, like, it'd be so fun. Like, just watching these guys cross each other, even like, it'd be even better if it was a mix of big guys and little guys. Because you just know the second Jokic gets it, he's just backing down Dame Lillard into the post and dunking over him every time.
Right.
Like, I think it kind of would be kind of cool to like see who really is like one of the best.
I'm all for that. I don't like dividing them up by size or position or whatever. I agree. Now, would you settle for 2-on-2 or 3-on-3? Is that better than the skills competition?
Better than the skills competition, yes, but I'd rather see one-on-one because, like Cam said, this is pride on the line.
I agree.
But yes, if I had the option,
I want to see one-on-one, and I'm half serious about no reps.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, I'd be down with no reps.
They wouldn't do it, but I'd love to see it.
Twos would be pretty fun because it gives me NBA Jam flashbacks.
Yeah, my childhood.
Yeah,
I will say.
Yeah, you get a glimpse at like a duo that you're never gonna get to see. You know, like I want to see Luka and Zion play together. That'd be fun. You know?
Yeah. Oh, it'd be awesome. Yeah, I agree. Well, 2-on-2, 1-on-1's the best. 2-on-2 would be second best. All right. So that's a great question from Bennett. Thank you, Bennett. Folks, remember to send us your questions to admin, ADMIN, at hoopsprospects.com. I want to thank our two guests today, Santiago Vescovi and DaRon Holmes from Dayton. Plus, I want to thank all our listeners. We'll be back in 2 weeks to discuss more hopes. We'll see you soon, folks.
Shout out.